Welcome to today's Explainer. We're unpacking some truly fascinating worldviews from philosopher Luciano Floridi, specifically looking at how technology is quite literally rewriting the human experience. If you think the digital age is just about, screen time, faster internet speeds, or cool new apps, well, think again. We're talking about a fundamental, historical shift in who we are and exactly where we stand in the universe.
So, let's dive right in. Have you ever actually stopped to wonder how living constantly connected is rewriting what it means to be human? Because constant connectivity isn't just a convenient modern tool anymore, it's a profound shift in our very identity. We aren't just using technology to check off tasks, the technology is fundamentally changing our environment, and by doing that, it's totally changing us. Part 1. The 4 Human Revolutions.
Okay, to understand where we're going, we really need to look back at how history has repeatedly delivered these narcissistic wounds that knocked humanity right off our presumed pedestal. Notice how Copernicus, Darwin, Freud, and finally Alan Turing progressively decentralized the human ego over the centuries. In 1543, Copernicus basically told us, hey, we aren't at the center of the universe. Then in 1859, Darwin proved we aren't at the center of the biological kingdom either. By 1899, Freud showed we aren't even the transparent masters of our own minds. And that brilliant historical pattern, it perfectly sets the stage for where we find ourselves today. And that brings us to the fourth revolution. This is the current era where we have to accept a tough reality. We are no longer the only agents capable of successfully solving complex problems. Sparked by Alan Turing, this revolution proves that logical reasoning and agency just aren't exclusive to our species anymore. We've literally been displaced. We are no longer the unique, central agents of the informational domain. Part 2. Agency without human intelligence. Now, when we hear that machines are taking our place in the informational domain, our minds almost immediately jump to those sci-fi fears, right? Conscious terminators taking over the world. But honestly, that is a complete misunderstanding of how modern technology actually works. We absolutely must divorce agency from intelligence. See, human intelligence relies on biological understanding, reflection, and conscious thought. Smart agency, on the other hand, is just highly effective problem-solving with absolutely zero understanding. Your smartphone plays chess flawlessly, not because it's conscious, but because it executes smart agency without a single drop of biological intelligence. As Floridi so bluntly puts it, the actual consciousness of these highly successful problem-solving machines is virtually non-existent. So that whole fear of sentient AI, it's really just a massive distraction. The intelligence of these advanced systems is roughly equal to your grandmother's fridge. They don't have human-like cognition, they just complete specific tasks incredibly well.
Part 3. Enveloping the Modern World.
So you might be wondering, if machines aren't intelligent, how are they so incredibly successful at complex tasks? If they literally have the intelligence of a fridge, how are driverless cars and trading algorithms basically shaping our global economy? Well, the secret is a process called enveloping. Instead of building machines to navigate our chaotic human world, we adapt the world to fit the machine's capabilities. We structure the environment so that a non-intelligent, smart agent can succeed flawlessly. The dishwasher analogy is absolutely perfect for illustrating this concept. Think about it. We didn't build a robot with mechanical hands to stand at the kitchen sink and scrub plates with a sponge, right? No, we built an enclosed, perfectly tailored environment, an envelope, where simply spinning hot water does the trick. Modern warehouses run by robots are the exact same thing. They are environments built entirely for machines, not for humans. We achieve autonomous success by rebuilding our infrastructure to be AI-friendly. Part 4. Living Onlife as Inforgs. Now, because we are adapting our world for machines, it's fundamentally transforming our own human nature. We aren't just changing the environment for the robots, we are changing what we are. We have evolved into Inforgs, informational organisms. This means your personal data is no longer just some digital property you own. It's a direct extension of your human identity. When someone hacks your data, they aren't just stealing a file. They are violating your identity, your autonomy, and your human dignity. And we no longer simply log on to the internet. We live embedded within the Infosphere, alongside billions of other smart gadgets and algorithms. Think about it this way. Just as biological organisms are totally inseparable from the biosphere, we are now completely submerged in the infosphere. We rarely even realize it, but it is the absolute lifeblood of modern society. Because of this, we are living on life. That whole 1990s question of, hey, are you online right now? It's totally meaningless today.
Nobody asks if you're online when you use your GPS or check your smartwatch or tap a contactless credit card. The boundary has completely collapsed. You are always seamlessly on life.
Part 5. The Mangrove Society. So, how do we even make sense of a world where the physical and the digital are totally fused together like this? Fluharty beautifully compares our existence to the brackish water at the mouth of a river. Asking if our experiences are purely analog or purely digital just misses the point entirely. If you stand right where the river meets the sea and ask, is this water sweet or salty? Well, you've completely misunderstood where you are. It's both. We thrive in what he calls a mangrove society. That means everything we do is a seamless, hybrid mixture of both environments. Just like mangrove trees that are anchored right there in that brackish water, our daily lives, our relationships, our politics, and our economies have roots growing simultaneously in the physical dirt and the digital data.
Part 6. The Green and Blue Alliance. I know it's easy to feel a little bit lost in the mangrove society. So how do we survive, let alone flourish, in this brackish water without getting completely overwhelmed by the rapid pace of technological change? The answer lies in forging a Green and Blue Alliance. This is a strategic merging of ecological sustainability, the green, with digital innovation, the blue. We just can't treat them as separate issues anymore. We have to purposefully design systems where digital tools actively support human flourishing and environmental health, rather than just mindlessly consuming technology.
And this requires a really radical shift toward a new capitalism of care. This is a model where businesses and governments actually take responsibility for the health of our shared digital and physical ecosystems. Because remember, since our data is our identity, taking care of the Infosphere is quite literally taking care of humanity itself. We desperately need governance that treats the digital world with the exact same respect and protection we theoretically apply to the natural world. I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to carry forward as you navigate your beautifully complex on-life reality. Now that you know you are an Inforg, how will you shape your Infosphere? Because every click, every interaction, and every single policy you support helps design the envelope we all live in. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this gives you a completely new lens to view our deeply connected world.
Picture the classic sci-fi movie scenario. You know the one perfectly.
Oh, yeah.
The scientists are gathered around this glowing, monolithic computer terminal. The dramatic synthesizer music is swelling in the background.
Right, very ominous.
Exactly. And suddenly, the artificial intelligence wakes up. It achieves consciousness, the cursor blinks, and it becomes this hyper-rational being that just decides it no longer needs us.
The classic Hollywood nightmare.
Yeah, the narrative we have been aggressively fed for decades, right?
Right.
The Terminator, HAL 9000, Skynet. But what if the biggest threat from AI isn't that it's going to wake up and become a conscious genius?
Right.
What if the reality is that it is completely, utterly, and entirely dumb? And yet we are fundamentally changing our entire physical and social world to accommodate it anyway.
It is a complete inversion of how we intuitively think about the future of technology. And frankly, it's a much more unsettling reality when you really look at it.
Oh, completely.
We are constantly looking over our shoulders, scanning the horizon for the conscious machine, while totally missing the quiet, mechanical revolution that is already happening.
The one redesigning our cities and our psychology.
Exactly. It's redesigning the very definition of what it means to be a human being.
And that is the exact premise of our mission for this deep dive today. So for you listening, we are looking at a massive stack of sources, lectures, interviews, strategic briefings, and research papers, all from Luciano Fluharty.
He's a really brilliant philosopher of information and digital ethics.
Yeah, a leading voice.
Yeah.
We're going to distill his concept of the fourth revolution, and we are going to explore how living in a constantly connected state is completely rewriting human identity.
Right, transitioning us into what he calls Inforgs, or informational organisms.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Fluharty's framework is fascinating because he takes these massive, abstract technological shifts and grounds them in a deeply historical context.
He really does. He provides a vocabulary for the modern digital age that most of us are acutely experiencing every time we look at our phones, but we just haven't quite figured out how to articulate it.
Right. He diagnoses the modern condition by looking at how our self-esteem as a species has been systematically battered over the centuries.
Which is such a great way to frame it.
So to understand who we are today in this digital age, We actually have to start by understanding who we aren't anymore. Because human history has been a series of what Flaherty calls narcissistic wounds.
That phrase is just so evocative. A narcissistic wound.
It perfectly captures that bruised ego feeling on a species-wide level, doesn't it? We didn't just learn new facts, we had our collective pride broken.
Precisely. For a very long time, human beings operated under the deeply comforting assumption that we were the absolute, unequivocal center of the universe.
The main characters of the cosmic play.
Exactly. We thought everything else, the stars, the planets, the animals, was just a stage setting designed specifically for us. But science has systematically dismantled that centrality through a series of revolutions.
And Flaherty outlines 4 of them, right?
Yeah, starting with the first revolution, which is the Copernican revolution.
Now, obviously, we all know Copernicus. We used to look up at the sky and think the Earth was stationary and everything revolved around us.
The geocentric model, yeah.
Right. And Copernicus comes along and proves the Earth actually orbits the sun. We are just a rock floating in the periphery. But what Flaherty focuses on isn't the astronomy, is it?
No, not at all. He focuses on the psychological fallout, the ontological shock.
The ontological shock. I like that.
We tend to look back at the resistance to Copernicus and think, people were just being stubborn or scientifically illiterate. But Flaherty points out that the resistance was rooted in sheer existential terror.
Because it was an incredibly unpleasant reality to digest.
Exactly. If we aren't at the physical center of God's creation, well, what is our purpose? Are we just an accident on the edge of a massive cold void?
People lost their lives over this debate because the implications undermine the entire authority structure of human exceptionalism.
Right, but human nature being what it is, we are incredibly resilient when it comes to our egos. We retrenched.
We drew a new line in the sand.
We did. We said, okay, fine, the cosmos doesn't revolve around us. We are on the edge of the galaxy. But at least here on Earth, we are the center of the biological world.
We are the kings and queens of nature, a species entirely apart from the animals, placed here to rule over them.
Which sets the stage perfectly for the second revolution, the Darwinian revolution. Charles Darwin publishes On the Origin of Species and essentially delivers the second massive narcissistic wound.
Right. He demonstrates that we aren't a special, separate, divine creation.
We are intricately woven into the animal kingdom. We share common ancestors with apes. We are just one branch on a very large, very ancient, and very chaotic biological tree.
And again, the societal reaction wasn't just, oh, interesting biology. It was defensive denial.
Oh, completely.
Think about the famous political cartoons of the era drawing Darwin's head on a monkey's body.
Yeah.
That is the literal manifestation of a narcissistic wound. It's species-level insecurity.
Exactly. But once again, we retreat. We find a new trench to hide in.
We say, all right, we share biology with animals. We evolved just like they did, but our minds are unique.
Yes. We told ourselves we have rational consciousness. We have complete, transparent control over our mental lives, unlike beasts driven by pure instinct.
Flaherty uses a great analogy here to explain that specific mindset, drawing from René Descartes, right?
He does. Descartes viewed the mind like a basket of apples. If you wanted to know what was in your mind, you just looked in the basket.
You could just pull thoughts out one by one.
Right. You take each thought out, examine it in the bright light of reason, throw away the bad ones, keep the good ones. The mind was fully transparent to the self. We believed we were the absolute masters of our own internal domains.
But then comes the third revolution. Sigmund Freud introduces the concept of the unconscious.
And that completely shatters the basket of apples idea.
He tells us that the mind is not a transparent shoebox. There are hidden drives, repressed memories, and unconscious motivations that govern a massive amount of what we do.
Freud showed us that we are not even the masters of our own mental space. As Flaherty puts it, much of the human iceberg is submerged entirely beneath the surface of the water.
We are driven by forces we can't easily see or control.
Right. So, in rapid succession, historically speaking, we lost our place at the center of the universe, the center of the biological kingdom, and the center of our own rationality.
It's like we thought we were the main characters in a solo play. And history just keeps zooming the camera out wider and wider to show we're really just extras in the background of a massive ensemble cast.
We just keep getting pushed further and further off the center of the stage.
But according to Flaherty, heading into the late 20th century, we still had one final trench to hide in.
We did. We saw refuge in the realm of information and logic. We told ourselves, okay, we aren't the physical center of the universe. We are animals, and our subconscious is a mess.
But at least we are smart.
Exactly. At least we are the only smart agents in existence.
Yeah.
We are the only beings that can process complex information, play a strategic game of chess, translate a language, or solve intricate logical problems.
We believed human exceptionalism ultimately rested on our ability to be the supreme informational processors of the world.
Which brings us to the fourth revolution, the Turing revolution.
Alan Turing, the brilliant mathematician who cracked the Enigma code.
Right. Turing essentially laid the groundwork to displace us from the center of the informational domain. He showed us that logic, calculation, and complex problem solving are not exclusively human traits.
We can build machines that process information and execute tasks far faster and more effectively than we ever could.
Turing proved that you can have computation without human cognition, and that is the fourth and final narcissistic wound. We are completely decentralized.
We are no longer the unique masters of agency or information processing. We have to share this space with machines.
Yes.
Okay, I have to jump in here and push back a little, or at least voice what I know is screaming in the back of the listener's mind.
Go for it.
Because when we hear that machines are sharing this informational space and outperforming us, the immediate image that jumps to mind is that they are thinking.
Sure, that's the natural assumption.
When my phone seamlessly translates a menu in Tokyo from Japanese to English, or when I ask an AI to write a deeply emotional eulogy for a pet and it actually makes me tear up.
It feels human.
It really does. It is so hard to accept that it's just computation. How is semantic meaning completely absent if the output evokes real human emotion? Aren't we defining intelligence too narrowly if we say these machines don't have it?
That is exactly the friction point Freud addresses, and it requires a complete mental paradigm shift. The reason you feel like the machine is thinking or feeling is because you are projecting biological human traits onto a mechanical process.
Anthropomorphizing it.
Exactly. You are experiencing the output and assuming the process that created it matches your own internal process. But it doesn't. And this is Floridy's most critical insight for the modern age. The absolute divorce of agency from intelligence.
The divorce of agency from intelligence. Let's really drill down into those two terms.
Okay, so agency in this philosophical framework is simply the ability to perform a task successfully in view of a goal. It means getting the job done.
Just executing an action successfully.
Right. Intelligence, on the other hand, in the biological or human sense, involves conscious understanding, self-awareness, semantic comprehension of what you are doing, and the ability to adapt cognitively to entirely new, out-of-context situations.
So for all of human history, those two things were married. If you wanted a complex task done, say, translating a document or even just ironing a complex pleated shirt, you needed intelligence.
Right. Agency and intelligence were inextricably linked. You couldn't have one without the other.
If you wanted the shirt ironed, you needed a human with a brain to look at the shirt, understand the fabric, recognize the wrinkles, understand the physics of heat on cotton, and actually iron it.
Precisely. But what the digital revolution has achieved is a divorce. We have engineered machines that possess massive agency. They can successfully complete incredibly complex tasks with absolutely zero intelligence.
Florudi uses this fantastic analogy in the sources. He compares an iPhone playing chess to a grandmother's refrigerator.
It is brilliant because it is so intentionally mundane. Think about a modern smartphone playing a chess app at the highest difficulty.
It'll crush me in 10 moves.
That iPhone can beat virtually any grandmaster in the world at chess. It has incredible agency in the domain of that game, but how much actual conscious intelligence does it have?
According to Floridi, it has the exact same biological intelligence as a refrigerator, which is zero.
Zero. The iPhone does not know it is playing chess. It does not feel the joy of victory or the anxiety of a bad move. It doesn't understand the concept of a game.
It's just executing mathematical operations.
Exactly.
But going back to my challenge about an AI writing a eulogy that makes me cry, if it has the intelligence of a fridge, how does it evoke emotion?
Because it is what we call a syntactic engine, not a semantic one. Human intelligence relies on semantics, understanding the actual meaning of words, the context of grief, the lived experience of losing a pet.
The actual feeling.
Right. The AI has none of that. What it has is massive computation and huge reservoirs of data. It has processed billions of pages of human writing about grief.
So it's just predicting words.
Exactly. It uses statistical probabilities to predict which word should mathematically follow the next word to mimic the patterns of human grief. It finds patterns in a high-dimensional vector space that a human brain could never process.
Wow.
It is successfully solving the problem of writing a sad text without any cognitive understanding of what sadness actually is.
It is mimicking the shadow of intelligence without the substance. So when an algorithm curates my entire social media feed or diagnoses a medical scan with higher accuracy than a doctor, it isn't doing it because it understands the nuances of my personality or the biology of a tumor.
Not at all.
It just has so much data that its statistical model says, pixels arranged in this specific gradient usually correlate with this specific outcome.
Yes. We haven't created a second type of human intelligence. We have created a totally alien way of getting things done. Flaherty likens it to having a massive reservoir of agency on tap, just like we have electricity or water on tap.
You just plug into it and it solves the problem, but there is no consciousness in the plug.
Precisely.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second.
Yeah.
If we accept that these machines are fundamentally dumb, that they are just statistical pattern matchers with zero semantic understanding, that actually raises a massive practical paradox. Well, the world is incredibly messy. The human world is full of chaos, unpredictability, irrationality, and physical nuance. If these machines are essentially just dumb problem solvers that require perfectly structured data to crunch, how on earth are they successfully operating in our physical, chaotic human world?
That's the million-dollar question.
Why hasn't my self-driving car crashed into a rogue shopping cart or a fire hydrant yet? How's a dumb agent surviving on my messy street?
And the answer is the most profound architectural shift of our time. They aren't surviving on your messy street because we are changing the street.
Wait, what do you mean?
We are not adapting the technology to fit into our human world. We are aggressively changing our physical and social world to fit the limitations of the technology.
And this brings us to the concept of enveloping the world.
Yes. To understand why dumb machines appear so successful, you have to look at the environment they operate within. Flaherty borrows a term from mechanical engineering, the envelope.
The envelope.
Okay. In industrial robotics, an envelope is the defined three-dimensional space where a robot can successfully operate. If you have a robotic arm in a car factory that is programmed to weld a chassis, the envelope is the exact physical space that arm can reach.
And outside that envelope, the robot is totally useless. It cannot adapt.
It doesn't know it's a robot. It doesn't know what a car is. It just moves its arm to XYZ coordinates and fires a laser.
Right. So to make the robot successful, you don't make the robot smarter. You tightly control the environment. You make sure the car chassis arrives at the exact millimeter coordinate every single time.
You build an envelope. Flaherty uses the analogy of a dishwasher to bring this into everyday life, and it perfectly illustrates the concept.
I love this analogy because it shifts the perspective so completely. If you want to automate the washing of dishes, the intuitive sci-fi approach is to build a humanoid robot.
Like C-3PO at the sink.
Exactly. A robot with 2 arms, visual sensors, and tactile feedback to stand at your sink, hold a sponge, and scrub a plate exactly like a human does.
But that requires an immense amount of intelligence. The robot has to understand the fragility of a wine glass versus the durability of a cast iron skillet. It has to adapt to a sink full of randomly stacked silverware. It is way too complex for a dumb agent.
So instead of inventing a robotic wheel that can miraculously climb over mountains and boulders of dirty dishes, we just decided to build a perfectly flat road.
Yes, we built a square envelope, the dishwasher. It is a highly controlled, closed, machine-friendly environment. Inside that box, you don't need a smart, adaptive robot.
You just need a spinning arm that shoots hot water and soap at a regular interval.
Exactly. The agent inside the dishwasher is incredibly stupid. But because the environment has been perfectly tailored to its limitations, because you carefully slotted the plates in the racks, it is 100% successful.
We adapted the environment to the machine rather than the machine to the environment. And what Flaherty is warning us about is that we are now taking the logic of the dishwasher and scaling it up to encompass the entire globe. We are enveloping the world.
Yes, look at an Amazon fulfillment center. These aren't just large buildings where people use computers. These are spaces fundamentally designed for algorithms, not humans.
The shelving units are mobile. The barcodes are specifically optimized for machine vision.
The floor layouts are designed for automated guided vehicles. In those spaces, a human being is actually a massive nuisance.
Because we are unpredictable, we walk at irregular speeds, we drop things.
Right. The environment has been enveloped for the machine's success.
He also points to Audi's automated parking garages in Germany. Multi-story buildings where you drop your car off at the entrance and a massive robotic system maneuvers the car into a slot with perfect millimeter precision.
And there are no stairs for pedestrians, no human walkways, no lighting necessary because robots don't need to see the way we do.
The humans are physically barred from the space. It's an envelope.
But what is truly staggering is how this logic is bleeding out of warehouses and into our public squares, our urban planning, our daily lives. Let's go back to your question about the driverless car.
Yeah, how does it handle the chaos?
A driverless car, despite all the Silicon Valley marketing, is still an incredibly stupid agent compared to a human driver when it comes to dealing with a chaotic, unpredictable city street.
Right. Think about walking around a busy Italian piazza or even just a chaotic intersection in New York. If a pedestrian makes eye contact with me or if a cyclist wobbles slightly, I instinctively know what they're about to do.
You read the social cues.
Exactly. A driverless car struggles immensely with that semantic social meaning. It just sees moving polygons.
Right. So how do the engineers make the driverless car successful without having to solve the impossible problem of artificial general intelligence? They envelop the city.
They change the roads.
They lobby for dedicated smart lanes. They install sensors in the asphalt. They deploy traffic lights that broadcast digital signals directly to the car's computer so it doesn't have to look at the light with a camera.
They ensure that lane boundaries are perfectly painted with reflective materials the car's LiDAR can read easily.
We are Roombifying our environment. Just as you might arrange your living room furniture differently or buy a couch with higher legs so your automated vacuum doesn't get stuck, we are actively redesigning our physical world to be friendly to artificial agents.
And that has profound unintended consequences. What happens to the human pedestrian in a fully enveloped smart city?
They become a system error.
Wow.
A system error. Exactly. If the city is optimized for the smooth, predictable flow of autonomous vehicles communicating in a digital mesh network, spontaneous human behavior becomes a liability.
Jaywalking isn't just dangerous, it disrupts the algorithm of the entire block.
We begin to criminalize or design away the messy, spontaneous, unenveloped aspects of human life. We are paving over humanity for the convenience of the machine.
That is a staggering realization. If the physical world is increasingly becoming a digital envelope optimized for robots and algorithms, what happens to our lived human experience? Where do we actually reside now? Because we clearly aren't just biological creatures walking on dirt anymore.
That leads us directly into understanding our new habitat. Because we no longer just live in the biosphere. We now inhabit what Freud calls the Infosphere.
The Infosphere. It sounds a bit like a concept out of a cyberpunk novel from the 80s, but it's really just the reality of our global space of information and data, right?
It is the global environment constituted by all informational entities, their properties, interactions, processes, and mutual relations. It is everything from the internet to your smartwatch to the data servers running the power grid.
It is our new environment.
And to explain what it feels like to live in this infosphere, Freud introduces one of his most beautiful and, I think, accurate metaphors, the mangrove society.
I really want the listener to picture this.
Yeah.
Think about the smartphone in your pocket right now, or the device you're using to listen to this audio. You might be walking down a physical street, breathing real air, feeling the sun on your skin.
Right, in the physical world.
But simultaneously, your GPS is pinging a satellite in orbit, mapping your location in the cloud. We are speaking to you digitally in your ears. Your watch is logging your biometric data and sending it to a server farm in another state.
You are physically here, but you are digitally everywhere. You are the mangrove.
It's a brilliant analogy.
Yeah.
Mangroves, for those who might not know, are these incredible trees that grow in a very specific, unique environment. Estuaries, where the sweet water of a river meets the salty water of the sea.
The water there is brackish. It is a complete hybrid of both. Floridi says, imagine you are scuba diving in a mangrove forest, examining the roots, and someone taps you on the shoulder and asks, excuse me, is the water here sweet or salty?
You would look at them like they had lost their minds. It's neither, and it's both. The question fundamentally misunderstands the environment. You are missing the entire point of where you are if you try to separate it to a binary.
Exactly. And Floridi argues that asking someone today, are you online or offline, is just as nonsensical, just as outdated, as asking if mangrove water is sweet or salty.
It is a question that belongs in the 1990s.
Back then, you sat down at a heavy desktop computer, you listened to the screech of a dial-up modem, and you achieved a state called being online. Then you turned off the monitor, you walked out into the yard, and you were firmly offline.
But that distinction is completely dead now.
The analog and the digital have seamlessly merged. We are an amphibian generation, swimming in the brackish water of the infosphere. We are living what he calls Onlife.
Onlife.
Yeah.
It captures the reality that we are constantly connected, constantly generating data, constantly interacting with digital agents, even when we aren't looking at a screen.
When a modern farmer walks their field, they might be elbow deep in physical dirt, but they are receiving real-time algorithmic crop yield predictions based on drone soil analysis and global weather data patterns.
They are farming on life.
And this isn't just a quirky lifestyle change like adopting a new diet. Floridi argues this is a fundamental structural shift in human history. We have moved from history into what he calls hyperhistory.
Hyperhistory. Let's trace the trajectory of that. Prehistory was the epoch before the invention of the alphabet and writing. Society had no way to record the present for future consumption. It relied on oral tradition and immediate survival.
Right. And then history began with the recording of information, the alphabet, the printing press. Information became a tool, but in historical times, society's survival was still fundamentally based on physical mechanics, agriculture, and industrial production.
Meaning if you took away the library in the 1800s, society would suffer intellectually, but the crops would still grow and the trains would still run.
Precisely. Hyperhistory is a new era where our individual and social well-being, our governance, our entire societal infrastructure is completely dependent on information and communication technologies, or ICTs.
We have crossed a threshold where the digital layer is no longer just a tool. It is the load-bearing foundation.
If you pull the plug on the digital layer today, society doesn't just regress a bit, it instantly collapses.
Floridi points out that you live in a hyper-historical society if a cyber attack can bring your entire country to its knees.
Look at modern warfare. You don't necessarily bomb the power plant physically. You hack the industrial control systems running the plant.
Our banking, our logistics supply chains, our medical records, our communications, they're all entirely reliant on the infosphere.
We are sitting on top of this digital infrastructure. As he bluntly puts it, those who live by the digit die by the digit.
It's profound when you stop and think about it. Just one generation ago, the digital world was a destination we visited. Now it is the water we swim in.
It really is.
Which naturally brings up the next big existential question. If our habitat is this brackish, on-life infosphere, what does that make us? How do we survive, adapt, and maintain our humanity in an environment that is optimized for artificial agents?
This is where we have to redefine our very identity. If we are no longer the unique masters of the universe, biology, or the mind, and if we share our informational space with smart, dumb machines, Floridi argues we must recognize ourselves as Inforgs.
Inforgs, informational organisms.
Exactly.
Okay, to clarify for you listening, we are not talking about cyborgs here. We aren't talking about implanting microchips in our brains or getting robotic arms. We are Inforgs because our identity is fundamentally, inextricably tied to our information.
Yes. For centuries, we viewed ourselves as Newtonian objects, standalone physical entities that just bumped into other physical entities in a mechanical world.
Just bodies in space.
But in the infosphere, we are interconnected nodes in a vast network. Our identity is our data.
I want to really dig into this because this distinction completely changes how we should view data privacy. We usually think of our personal data as our property.
Like a car or a house.
Right. Something we own and something we can sell or trade away for a free service, like social media.
And Floridi argues that viewing data as property is a massive philosophical mistake. Your data is not what you own. Your data is who you are. It is your identity. Think about the European Union's UDPR legislation, the General Data Protection Regulation.
Yeah, they use specific terminology for that.
It intentionally uses the term data subjects to describe citizens, not data owners, data subjects.
Because if your data is property, it's just a commodity. If your data is your identity, then selling it isn't like selling a car. It's more akin to selling a kidney or selling yourself into indentured servitude.
Exactly. Who you are in the 21st century, your ability to get a loan, get a job, cross a border, receive medical care, is entirely dictated by your digital footprint, your search history, your credit score, your social graph.
And realizing that we are Inforgs exposes a massive vulnerability. Because for a long time, particularly since the Enlightenment, we have loved to view ourselves as these hyper-rational, fiercely independent actors.
We like to think we wake up every day and make logical decisions based purely on free will and careful deliberation.
Which, if we refer back to the Freudian revolution, we already know isn't entirely true. but in the infosphere, it is dangerously false.
Extremely dangerous. As Inforgs, we are actually incredibly fragile. We are highly malleable, easily distracted, and deeply susceptible to psychological influence.
When we interact with the infosphere, we aren't just reading static pages in a book.
No, we are interacting with dynamic algorithms designed specifically to predict, shape, and monetize our behavior.
We are being nudged.
We are nudged constantly. Every single digital architecture you interact with is designed to prompt a specific action. The algorithm on Amazon suggests a product you didn't know you wanted, but suddenly need.
The algorithm on YouTube queues up the next video automatically so you don't even have to choose to keep watching.
The algorithm on a social media newsfeed prioritizes a specific emotionally charged headline because it knows it will trigger your outrage and keep you engaged.
This is where that divorce of agency and intelligence becomes actively hostile. The algorithm doesn't know it's making you angry or depressed. It has zero intelligence.
But it has the massive agency to deploy a variable reward schedule, exactly like a slot machine in a casino, to exploit your dopamine receptors and keep you scrolling. It levers massive amounts of data to exploit our cognitive biases.
We are not hyper-rational. We often just take the path of least resistance presented to us by the interface design. If the button is green and large, we click it.
Exactly.
So if we are this fragile, if we are these easily manipulated inforgs swimming in an ocean of algorithms that have zero intelligence but massive agency to influence us, how do we protect ourselves? We can't just unplug. We already established that we live on life and society would collapse. So what's the defense mechanism?
This is why Floridi argues that we urgently need robust governance, specifically what he calls soft ethics.
Soft ethics. That all sounds a bit weak. As opposed to hard ethics.
Hard, in this context, usually refers to hard law legislation, strict compliance, what you are legally required to do under threat of penalty.
Right.
But Floridi argues that in the hyper-historical digital age, compliance with the law is vastly insufficient.
I like to think of this using the analogy of driving. Hard law is the guardrails on a mountain highway. It exists solely to stop you from driving off a cliff and dying. It is the absolute minimum floor of acceptable behavior.
That's a great analogy.
But soft ethics is the lane assist technology inside the car. It is actively working to keep you centered, smooth, and moving optimally.
That is exactly how to frame it. The law moves far too slowly to keep up with AI development. If a tech company says, well, we aren't technically breaking any laws with this algorithm, that isn't good enough.
Soft ethics is what happens above and beyond legal compliance.
It is about actively designing systems that protect human dignity and promote human flourishing, not just avoiding a lawsuit.
So what does that lane assist actually look like in practice? How do we govern AI in the infosphere?
Floridi, along with the AI for People group and the European Commission, helped develop a framework of 5 core ethical principles that must be baked into the design of AI from day one. Let's walk through them because they provide the blueprint for survival.
The first principle is beneficence.
Beneficence means AI must be designed to promote the well-being of humanity and the planet. It must actively do good.
So it can't just be neutral.
No, it can't just be a neutral tool for profit extraction. If we are building an enveloped world, that envelope must be designed to uplift the Inforg.
Which leads right into the second principle, non-maleficence.
It must do no harm. In the context of Inforgs, this specifically means it must avoid exploiting our vulnerabilities and fragilities.
It shouldn't manipulate us into destructive behaviors.
Right. A recommendation algorithm that pushes a teenager toward eating disorder content to maximize engagement time is violating non-maleficence.
The third principle is the one I find most fascinating, especially in light of the nudging we talked about. Autonomy.
Autonomy is critical. AI must preserve our freedom to choose. It must protect us from being overly coerced by algorithmic architectures. We have to remain the ultimate decision makers of our own lives.
How does that actually work mechanically in software design?
It means designing friction back into the system.
Oh, interesting.
The tech industry loves frictionless experiences, one-click buying, infinite scrolling. But friction is where human autonomy lives.
Because friction forces you to stop and think.
Exactly. Autonomy means the AI might suggest a path, but it explicitly requires the human to pause, reflect, and make a conscious choice to proceed. It means giving users granular control over what data is used to model them.
So when we talk about data privacy, it's not just about keeping a secret or hiding embarrassing photos from a hack. Privacy is fundamentally about protecting our autonomy.
Yes.
If an algorithm knows every single thing about me, it can manipulate my choices before I even realize I'm making them. Protecting your data is protecting your agency as a human being.
Spot on. If you lose your privacy, you eventually lose your autonomy. The fourth principle is justice. AI must ensure a fair distribution of both its benefits and its risks.
Meaning we can't build an enveloped world that only works for the wealthy.
Exactly. It cannot be a tool that only empowers a wealthy elite who can afford algorithmic optimization, personalized AI tutors, and premium healthcare diagnostics while disenfranchising the rest of the mangrove society.
Leaving them to be surveilled and nudged by basic corporate algorithms.
Right. It has to be equitable.
And the final, fifth principle.
Explicability. We must be able to understand how the AI works. That's the intelligibility part. And we must always know who is accountable for its actions.
This directly attacks the black box excuse we hear all the time.
It does. If an algorithm denies you a mortgage loan, or if a driverless car causes an accident, or if an AI triage system denies you medical care, the engineers and the corporation cannot just shrug and say, well, the neural network is black box. We don't really know how it made that decision.
That is unacceptable under soft ethics.
There must be algorithmic transparency, and there must be a human who is legally and morally accountable for the machine's agency.
Okay, let's unpack this. If we take a step back and look at this entire framework,
Yeah.
we've been decentered by the fourth revolution. We share agency with dumb statistical machines.
We are enveloping our physical and digital world to accommodate them.
We are living on life as fragile Inforgs, and we desperately need these 5 principles of soft ethics to protect our autonomy. Armed with all of this, what is the ultimate goal? What is the human project for the 21st century?
That is the perfect culminating question. We know what we are, and we know the rules of the road. But where are we driving?
Right.
Floridi argues that the human project for this century, our grand narrative to replace the ones we lost, must be what he calls the marriage of the century, the alliance of the green and the blue.
The green and the blue. Let's define the colors of this alliance.
The green represents everything regarding environmental sustainability, ecological stewardship, social cohesion, and the biological world, the biosphere.
And the blue.
The blue represents digital innovation, the Infosphere, artificial intelligence, massive computing power, and information technologies.
For a long time, historically speaking, these two forces were seen as somewhat at odds, or at least operating in entirely separate domains.
They really were.
The tech bros were in Silicon Valley building the blue, and the environmentalists were in the forests fighting for the green.
And Floridi insists they must be united in a new capitalism of care. He argues that we have to fundamentally reframe our concept of sustainability.
I feel like for a lot of people, especially in the late 20th century, sustainability was always viewed as a sacrifice. It was this zero-sum idea that doing the right thing for the environment inherently meant you had to hurt the economy.
We have to lose manufacturing jobs to save the trees.
Exactly. We have to lower our standard of living to reduce emissions.
Yes, the 20th century view was that sustainability was a painful trade-off. It was the tax we had to pay. But Floridi argues that in the 21st century, the Green and Blue Alliance is the core strategy for a prosperous future.
It is not a sacrifice. It is the engine of growth.
As he bluntly puts it, sustainability is not the cherry on top of the cake. It is the cake itself.
But how does the blue, the digital tech, the dumb AI, the massive data centers, how does that actually make that possible? How does AI save the trees without tanking the economy? We need to understand the mechanism here.
It comes down to the concept of the circular economy and how blue tech enables it at scale. Floridi provides a great historical perspective to ground this. For most of human history, we actually lived in a circular economy.
We reused, we repurposed, we repaired things, we didn't waste much.
Right. If you were a farmer in the 1700s, you didn't throw away a broken plow. You melted down the iron and forged a new tool because you couldn't afford a new one.
It was a circular economy, but we were incredibly poor. It was a circular economy of scarcity.
Then came the Industrial Revolution and the 20th century. We abandoned the circular economy for a linear economy. We adopted the model of take, make, dispose.
We extracted resources from the earth, built disposable products, and threw them into a landfill when we were done.
And that linear model made us incredibly rich. It pulled billions of people out of poverty, raised the global standard of living, and created modern society.
But it absolutely devastated the green environment.
Precisely. So we have had two historical options: a circular but poor economy and a linear but rich economy. The promise of the blue, the digital power of AI, big data, sensors, and smart grids is that it is the first technology in human history that allows us to return to a circular economy while retaining our wealth.
Because the blue technology allows us to do vastly more with significantly less physical material. Let's look at a concrete case study for this, because this is where it gets really exciting.
Go ahead.
Think about recycling. In the past, recycling was incredibly inefficient. Humans had to stand at conveyor belts and try to sort plastics, which is slow, expensive, and error-prone. Much of it ended up in landfills anyway.
It just wasn't scalable.
But today, we are using AI, those dumb agents with massive agency equipped with robotic arms and hyperspectral cameras. These machines can scan garbage on a conveyor belt and sort recyclable plastics at a molecular level, distinguishing between different polymer types in milliseconds.
Exactly. That is the blue enabling the green. The AI doesn't know it's saving the planet, it's just sorting polygons on a belt inside its envelope.
But that massive computation allows a recycling facility to recover materials with such purity that they can be reused endlessly in manufacturing, replacing the need to extract new oil.
We are using the algorithms to optimize energy grids so no kilowatt is wasted. We are using digital twins of supply chains to predict maintenance before a machine breaks, preventing the need to manufacture a whole new machine.
We are substituting physical goods with digital services.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this green and blue alliance is the only viable path to ensure human flourishing. We cannot go back to the poverty of the past, and we cannot survive the environmental destruction of the linear present.
The digital blue technology is the essential, indispensable tool that makes the environmental green survival possible on a planet of 8 billion people.
It's not just a nice utopian idea, it is an existential necessity.
That is an incredibly powerful and ultimately hopeful vision to work toward. We've covered an immense amount of philosophical and technological ground today. Let's do a quick recap of the journey we've taken through Luciano Floridi's mind.
Well, we started by realizing that humanity has been decentered. The Copernican, Darwinian, Freudian, and finally the Turing revolutions have stripped us of our illusions of centrality.
We share the informational domain with artificial agents.
Then we explored the critical divorce of agency from intelligence. We debunked the sci-fi myth of the conscious AI, realizing that modern machines succeed not because they think or understand semantics, but because they are massive reservoirs of data-crunching syntactic agency.
They have the intelligence of a refrigerator, but the agency to beat a grandmaster.
And because these machines are fundamentally dumb and cannot handle the chaos of the natural world, we are enveloping our physical environment. We are paving over the world, from Amazon fulfillment centers to the streets of smart cities, tailoring reality to suit the limitations of these digital agents.
Which means we are now living on life in a mangrove society. The rigid binary between online and offline has completely dissolved in this new infosphere. We must navigate this brackish water not as isolated Newtonian individuals, but as Inforgs.
Informational organisms whose very identity is constituted by our data. And because we are fragile, easily nudged Inforgs, we desperately need to demand soft ethics from our tech developers.
Beneficence, non-maleficence, autonomy, justice, and explicability. These are the lane assists we need to protect our human agency from algorithmic manipulation.
And finally, our overarching mission, our human project for the 21st century, must be the marriage of the green and the blue, using the massive computational power of the Infosphere to save, sustain, and steward the biological biosphere, creating a circular economy of wealth.
It is a highly comprehensive and, as you said, optimistic framework, provided we take the responsibility for designing it ethically.
Absolutely.
So I want you, the listener, to really think about this framework the next time you are out in the world. The next time you use a self-checkout kiosk, or you see a driverless car navigating a specially marked smart lane, or you find yourself mindlessly accepting a perfectly timed recommendation from a streaming algorithm.
Just pause for a second.
Recognize that you are swimming in the brackish water of the Infosphere. You are an Inforg interacting with an enveloped world.
It completely changes how you perceive your daily mundane digital interactions, doesn't it?
It really does. It gives you the vocabulary to understand why things feel the way they do. But as we wrap up, it also leaves me with a final, slightly provocative thought, something we haven't touched on but feels inevitable based on Floridi's ideas.
What's that?
We talked extensively about how we are enveloping the world to perfectly suit these artificial agents. We are smoothing out all the friction so they can serve us seamlessly. But if our environment becomes perfectly optimized, perfectly tailored, perfectly frictionless for digital agents to cater to our every whim, do we as humans risk forgetting how to navigate a world that isn't perfectly tailored to our digital footprint?
That is a profound question for the hyperhistorical age.
As we become completely adapted to the luxurious comfort of the envelope, as we lose our tolerance for the messy, spontaneous, unoptimized reality of the physical world, what happens to human resilience if the envelope ever breaks?
If the power goes out.
It's exactly something to mull over the next time your Wi-Fi goes down and you suddenly remember what it feels like to be offline. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the philosophy of Luciano Floridi. We will catch you next time.